Damn it.
Nitro with the nice flow. Y'all acting like y'all don't know. Stop acting like y'all don't know.
Who the future? We the future. Who the future?
Us.
Who the future? We the future. Who the future?
Us. Causing chaos in the back of the bus. Get your hands up. We gon' show you how we buzz.
Yeah. The future.
On a suddenly not so casual free Friday evening, it is September 30th, 2022, the last show of the first month of the CFB season, fresh off a 1.5 unit banger victory. It is Sharky Waters Nation, 9 words of lifestyle. Ride the wave or get out of the water. It is CFB Knowledge for College Week 5, Friday night, Saturday morning, coming very soon. The Shark and the Guns Picks. What's going on tonight, brother?
Feeling good, feeling great on this beautiful Friday night. I am sweating a Tulane bet right now, so I'll make sure I am focused on the show here. But I got to tell you, I am 17-10-1 on the show, plus 11.3 units. We are the hottest show in college football, period. Sharpest. We're going to continue that into week 5. Let's go.
As I share this, want to get more people into the conversation in the chat. I know people are sweating games. Tulane game coming down to the wire. But we are staying here on Friday night. The Gun calls it a degenerate special. What he means is a winning special and an opportunity to dominate. Guns Picks. We're going on the road. Michael Penix Jr., first road game after 4 non-conference obliterations at home. Highly impressive stuff. A revenge game on the road at UCLA. An official.
People call it the degenerate special. I call it the sharp special. You know what I call it? It's one of those ones that you can even go to sleep. You can go rest easy, wake up Saturday morning, check your account, and boom, the money is there because this Washington team is absolutely electric, and this is a staple game for the program. Listen, I know what UCLA is. They dominated their competition, but they haven't played anybody. They played Bowling Green, Alabama State, Southern Alabama, that almost beat them, by the way. We picked it at plus 16.5. You're welcome. And then they had to go and play Colorado on the road and crush them. But now they're going to go play a Washington team that is way different than the Huskies of before. Both these teams are offensively balanced with stud quarterbacks, but I get the edge to Mr. Michael Penix, the transfer from Indiana. He has a 64.3 completion rate, 12 touchdowns, and 1 INT. The boy has flipped into a legend because he has 1,388 yards passing. He leads college football in that category. Now you have UCLA. They have their hands full with a good Washington pass rush. They have a 12.8 sack rate. This Washington team can get to the quarterback and is going to give DTR some fits. I know the UCLA line has a 2.2 sack rate. I think this is going to be the key to the game. If UCLA can stop the pass rush, which I doubt with this Washington team. They have some big boys on that line. So Washington lost to UCLA, revenge spot, as 1.5 point favorites last year at home. Now they are favored 3 points on the road against a good UCLA team. That rang an alarm in my sharp brain. So from a scheduling standpoint, Washington needs this game. This is the best game on the schedule until they have to play at Oregon. So if for college football playoff stipulations, this game means everything to them. UCLA on the other side, tougher schedule. They have to play Washington, Utah, and Oregon in their next 3 games, back to back to back. It's a whole different scenario, a whole different mindset. I think this Washington team is in a perfect spot, staple game. They're going to be put on the map in this spot, and you get them at a short line. God damn, this is a good game. Give me the Huskies minus 2.5 as the play.
Yeah, and you make a comment here. We want to talk about line functionality. Of course, this applies in certain environments in all sports, and it applies here in conference football, in college football. I've been waiting around since early August to get to conference season. This is the first week with mostly and exclusively conference games. You can cross-reference lines. When you lose last year at home at a minus 1.5, you come on the road after a lackluster 17-point performance in that game, and you're laying 3.5. It's a strong spot. It's not as public as people think. You have to consider a lot more elements. Speaking of considering elements, October 1st, 2022, a month to obliterate. And we're going 12 noon, and we're going Big Ten football. We're going straight to Madison, Wisconsin. My first official play, Illinois +7. I think something you guys are going to be seeing over the next couple months is we're really going to have the usual suspects on our lineup here. There are certain teams that we're going to target who are really catching a wave, if you will, of awful starts last year and historical generational windows of futility. Illinois fits this model. We've rode them multiple times this year. We had them last week against Chattanooga in a blowout special. We had them previously against Virginia, first half and game in a blowout special. Now they go on the road within the conference where they're 0-1 on the season. However, a primetime game at Indiana where they lost 23-20 on a pick'em. Indiana scored a touchdown inside of 30 seconds in the fourth quarter to win, and Illinois had a touchdown reverse that was actually a catch in the end zone. Illinois should have won that game. And you go back to last year, Illinois was 4-0 on the road as an underdog in the Big Ten Conference last year, ATS. Very impressive stuff for a team that was supposedly very lackluster, showing signs. Outright win at Penn State, outright win at Minnesota, which is an incredibly difficult travel and a juggernaut squad. And one final point, revenge game. Wisconsin got them at home last year, 24-0. Wisconsin laid 12 points on the road and won by 24. They come home. It should come up to 15 for neutrality. It's coming down to 7. Illinois, the spot at the early window, and in alignment with Guns picks.
Yeah, I'm on Illinois as well. I got them at +7 here, but look where this Illinois team is. This isn't the Illinois team that is a pushover anymore. This team is absolutely strong. They are 3-1 straight up and against the spread. Dominating the run game is key here. 4.8 yards per carry with a +221 net yard average. Now you have Wisconsin that's sitting here 2-2 straight up and against the spread here, but they played lackluster opponents. Their wins come from Illinois State and New Mexico State, and their losses come from reasonably strong teams here, Washington State and Ohio State. Ohio State being more of a juggernaut than a reasonably good opponent here. So now you got Wisconsin. They love to run the football. That's pretty much what they do. They have Braylon Allen, who's an absolutely electric performer, 6.8 yards per carry, 5.2 yards per carry as a team. But Illinois can run the ball as well. And you have to understand the Chase Brown situation. This is what this team does. They have a good quarterback as well. But let's talk about the defense of the Illinois Illini here. They have a good run defense. They only give up 2.9 yards per carry so far this season. Their pass defense is strong too, only giving up 40.9 completion rate to their opponents so far this year. And I think with Graham Mertz, who's a bad passer in my opinion, he's going to have some fits with this Illinois defense. Double revenge. You heard Shark talk about revenge. Let's talk about double revenge. You mentioned about the 2021 game, 24-0. Let's talk about the 2020 game when they were 19.5-point road dogs and they lost 45-7. You're seeing the line regress. And that is a key point in this game here. This is an Illinois team that is clicking on all cylinders. Great run game with Chase Brown. A decent quarterback with Tommy DeVito, 68.8% completion rate, 9 touchdowns, 2 INTs. And you have a good defense on top of that. Give me INL, ILL, INI as the play, +7. Boom.
Retweeting again if we want to get more people in here as we're trying to dominate the highest level. And speaking of dominating at the highest level, we are going right back to Old Reliable. People who have been following this season know who I'm talking about. We're going back to the I-81 corridor, Harrisonburg, Virginia, James Madison University, -22. A lot going on here. You go back through the calendar this year, James Madison has come into FBS football, and James Madison has come in and said, we are going to fuck you guys up. And that is no understatement there. And you go back through their calendar dating back to last year, they're 7-0 ATS as home favorites in games that they're laying double-digit points. The only time this year they did lay a huge, huge figure, they did lay it to Norfolk State -42. We had that, and they won the game 63-7. And if you really follow the track of this team, this is the type of team you want to buy. They're going to be competitively a step ahead all year. They want to let people know we are here. This is a conference home game against Texas State. Texas State is very, very down this year. If you really go through Texas State's calendar, we had them in week 1 when we were totally data deficient and really were kind of blindly trying, but not a lot of information available. Obliterated at Nevada. Nevada is not very good, and Nevada got them 38-14. Slightly later at Baylor, 42-7 loss. Texas State is a very fraudulent 2-2 straight up team on this campaign. Their only 2 wins have come at home against Florida International, who is absolute bottom feeder status within FBS football and got beat 73-0 last week. I should mention that. And of course, a win last week against Houston Christian out of the FCS. This is just staying the course with where you want to be with James Madison University, specifically against this opponent. -22, 1:30 p.m., Harrison, Virginia, 1 unit. Next play, we're going back to noon, and we're going to the SEC, and we're going down south. Ole Miss catching a spot, having played 2 years ago in the pandemic with no fans against Kentucky. They come back here, and they lay 7 points. Lane Kiffin and the boys. Guns, picks, and official.
Man, they're going to the Grove on this one, baby, but there's going to be fans in this situation. Let me tell you why. Listen, both teams are coming off a very flat win, but they're both 4-0 straight up in the situation. If you actually look at the two team schemes and you compared them to last year, you would have sworn these two teams switched uniforms. And let me tell you why. Ole Miss's offensive scheme has changed to more of a run-first offense versus a pass offense. They run the ball twice as much as they do pass the ball. They average 5.8 yards per carry on the ground with a 3-pronged attack with Keyshawn Junkins, Zach Evans, and the quarterback, Jackson Dart, the transfer from USC. Now you look at Kentucky on the other side of the spectrum. They rely a little bit more in the pass, which is outside of what they used to do. They used to like to run the ball. They average 296 yards passing with 67.5 completion rate, 10 touchdowns, 4 INTs for the QB here, Will Levis. Now they haven't played a team with a good passing defense, however, which Ole Miss has done well at, only giving up 193 yards of total offense in the passing game. Now, Kentucky offense struggles in the rush blocking, and pass blocking. The run game only averages 2.4 yards per carry, and they've already given up 16 sacks this year with a 13.7 sack rate to their opponents. Ole Miss's defense on the other side, this defensive line is stout, and they are hungry. They have an 8.9% sack rate, and against a bad offensive line, this Will Levis guy is going to be grass-stained and on his back in this spot in Ole Miss. Now, Ole Miss's offensive line on the other side, very good. They've only given up 2 sacks all season with a 1.9% sack rate. And the Kentucky defense on the other side, only a 5.1% sack rate. So very average. They're going against a great offensive line here. So what you're going to see here, in my opinion, you're going to see an Ole Miss team very hungry on a revenge. And this may be an absolute blowout because I think Kentucky is absolutely overrated here. Give me Ole Miss -7 as the play.
Yeah, strong stuff there. Absolutely. Going back to where I dropped on Twitter a couple days ago, we will jump off of this. Official play, 3:30 p.m. Lawrence, Kansas Jayhawks +3 against Iowa State. This is a generational come up for this team. Lance Leopold coming over here from Buffalo. Jalen Daniels taking leaps and bounds with his efficiency and professionalism as a third-year junior quarterback. And you look at just the absolute domination that Iowa State has brought to this rivalry, if you can even call it that. I don't think you can. In the last 7 years, 7 straight wins by an average win margin of 26.7 points per game. and an absolute blowout last year, 59-7 in Ames. The line for that game was minus 34.5, and they blew them out by 52. And books are drawing this all the way down to +3. It's where you want to fade an Iowa State team who really is fool's gold. Cleaned up some bottom feeders in their early out-of-conference schedule. Southeast Missouri State, Ohio out of the MAC. Caught a really lackluster Iowa team in the in-state rivalry game in week 2 and got their quality checked last week against Baylor at home. All boxes checked. A Kansas team that is 7-0 ATS last 7 and not stopping anytime soon. Kansas +3, 1.5 units. 2 p.m. Eastern, noon, I believe, out in Utah. Pac-12 football. Utah, a team who lost on the road early season out of conference at Florida, and ever since has been taking names in the process of obliteration, catching an Oregon State team off a cover in Corvallis against USC last week, a huge high, and also simultaneously a demoralizing loss in what was a cover of the spread. Utah at home in a revenge game. Guns, picks, and official.
Listen, Oregon State played their balls out last week, but they against a good USC team. USC pulled out a late touchdown to win the game. But if you look at the statistics, I think Oregon State probably should have lost by more. Listen, they lost 17-14, but you look at the net yards, minus 40 net yards in the game and a -4 turnover ratio. When you have a -4 turnover ratio, my God, you usually get murdered. But you have Utah coming off that week 1 loss to Florida. After that, they have a +233 net yard average. Granted, they played some inferior opponents. They played Southern Utah, San Diego State, and Arizona State. Now you have a Oregon State, great home team, loves to hang out in Corvallis, just snipping off Pac-12 teams. But when they go on the road, they struggle. This season, they put up 45 yards less offense and 180 yards more to their opponents with a -95 net yard average in that run. So, but you want to look at it on the other side when they play in Corvallis, +129 net yard average. Very different teams when they play on the road. Now, look at Utah. Revenge game. We keep bringing up revenge. This is conference football, baby. This is what we look at. This is what we live for. Revenge spots. Oregon State beat them 34-42 in Corvallis as 3.5 point, as when Utah was 3.5 point favorites. Now they face this Utah team at home, and they're 10.5 point favorites. Humongous swing in the line from a team that's been playing very well and presentable, coming off a close loss to USC. You're telling me that Utah is 10.5 points favored? That's a telltale sign, folks. Utah plays their best games at home because of the elevation. You're going to see this Oregon State team using the oxygen, and they have to play a little bit earlier because it's on a different time zone on the mountain side of things. So when you look at this Oregon team coming off a deflated home loss, you can also lose the same game twice. Utah hungry as hell to win a big revenge spot. I got to roll with the favorite here. Give me Utah -10.5. Also, bonus play. I like the under in this spot. Give me them at under 54.5 as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Obviously, one of the noticeable splits in college football exists: Corvallis, Oregon State, and road Oregon State. Corvallis is an incredibly difficult travel spot. They've covered, I believe, 9 straight home games. Not the same team on the road, and a strong line split. Next play, 6 p.m. We're going back to the well. Last week, we lost a bet with Old Dominion. In the middle of that game, I was already thinking about this week for one particular reason. Old Dominion in this campaign is showcasing an ability to motivate exclusively in their out-of-conference schedule against regional opponents of rivalry status. If you really go down this, Friday, September 2nd, an outright win at home against Virginia Tech, 20-17, regional rivalry. Next week after that, at ECU. Guns Picks had it officially. ECU, hammer time, 39-21. Came back the next week. University of Virginia, regional opponent, 16-14 loss, cover. Last week, divisional first conference game against Arkansas State within the Sun Belt, came out absolutely uselessly in a first half with very little scoring, very little focus, very little flow. And what do you get now? You get the fifth game in this out-of-conference sequence. Of course, last week was actually in conference, but you get a regional rivalry game against Liberty, and you get a revenge game. You get a team without Malik Willis. You get a Liberty team not showcasing an ability to lay points or travel well on the road, dating back to a really sharp look in week one, fading them with the University of Southern Mississippi. And one final point, this is the trend we are capping across the sport of college football. Teams that started out horribly last year oftentimes made a roster change, and I bring you directly to Old Dominion. 1-6 to start the season last year, inserted freshman quarterback at that point in time, Hayden Wolf. They turned up and they won every single game to close the season last year. This is a bye team. This is a team that shows up specifically against these regional opponents. And one final point, line last year, very similar to the previous game we just discussed, minus 27.5 Liberty in a 45-17 win and cover. We're getting this steamed in the other direction, which is actually advantageous. This was too early week. We're at 3.5 now. This game should be tight. However, ODU absolutely the top look in this environment. 1 unit official, Old Dominion plus 3.5. 3:30 p.m. We're going Big 12 football. We're going road team. Guns Picks. We're looking at Oklahoma State coming in here, a ranked matchup, catching Baylor in their Big 12 conference home opener, coming off of an impressive win last week against the aforementioned Iowa State. You're taking a side and a total under 55.5.
I don't just like this play. I freaking love this play. It didn't bring to my attention until I talked to my guy, Chris Thurston, a.k.a. CT Bets, when I asked him off the air if he thought what he thought about Baylor. And I saw a little bit of fear in his eyes. And I went, maybe I should look into this game further. And thank God I did, because I think this is a perfect spot for the Cowboys. When you look at Baylor, they're coming off a decent road win. They beat Iowa State 31-24 plus 11 net yard average. Pretty standard there. They basically dominated the turnover ratio plus 2. That was the big decider in the game. Now look at Oklahoma State coming off a bye week, well rested, well prepared, and this is a circle game for them. Now I'll get to that in a second. But when you go look at Baylor in the last 2 legitimate opponents that they played Iowa State and they played BYU. BYU beat them 26-20 at BYU, putting up 289 yards of total offense, minus 77 net yards in the loss. Now you have Baylor is definitely good versus the run. They hold their opponents to 2.6 yards per carry, but they've been exposed in the passing game, and that is kind of a circle for me when we get into the Oklahoma State offense. They give up 283 yards passing to BYU, 284 to Iowa State. Now you have Oklahoma. They can do it all on offense. They can run the ball. They can pass the ball. They put up 4.7 yards per carry on the run, and when they go against the pass, this is whopping here, 348 yards per game passing. Spencer Sanders is having himself a damn year after a lackluster year last year. 65.3 completion rate, 10 touchdowns, and 1 INT. Great ratio. And look at their offensive line, 2.6% sack rate in that regard. Revenge game. This is a key point here. Look what happened last time these two teams played. They met in the Big 12 championship. Oklahoma State was down 21-6 early first half. What did they do in the second half? They climbed, crawled, and inched their way back. It was 21-16, and Oklahoma State was driving at the goal line. Just missed by an inch, and that cost them not only the Big 12 championship, but also a spot in the college football playoff. If there is a revenge game, my God, this is the massive one. Also, you want to look at a couple trends because we're talking about totals here. Under is 4-1 in the last 5 matchups. Also, Oklahoma State 9-1-1 against the spread in their last 11 conference games, and the under is 6-1 in the last 7 in this matchup alone. So we have talking about a situational play. We're talking about an Oklahoma State that is hungry, angry. This is a circle game for them. This is a game that they want. This is a team they want to devour. And you have a Baylor team not as strong as they were last year, my friends. This Oklahoma State may just steamroll this Baylor Bears team. I am sorry. Give me not only the +2 that you're gifting me for the road team, give me the money line +115 and the under 55.5 as the play.
Love it. 3 units in one play, 1 unit in one play. We're going 7 p.m. We're going official play per the Shark. Georgia Southern in the Sun Belt +10.5. Got this early week. It's 10 now. I wouldn't talk you off the current line. A lot going on here yet again. You find a Coastal Carolina team that is trending downward in their ATS efficiency that does come in here 4-0 on the campaign, 2-2 ATS. Go back to week 1. We incorrectly faded them with Army +3. Army was right there in that game. You see this a lot of time in football. The game can be a coin flip and you might not run well. And when I say run well, I don't mean run the football. I mean in terms of statistical variation. You're losing coin flips that are just one scatter plot play, left, right, or center that can really affect your outcome. You stay the course with a correct idea, and you find a great position to fade Coastal Carolina coming off of a blowout win at Georgia State last Thursday night, 41-24. Crucial stuff there, however. Last year, Coastal Carolina was ranked for most of the season. They were 11-2 on the campaign, but one of their losses was to Georgia State. So that was a huge high for them to go on the road in a primetime weeknight game and beat Georgia State in a revenge game. Now they come home, mini bye off that. They haven't played since the 22nd of September, and they catch a short line in their direction. Last year, they did hammer Georgia Southern 28-8 on the road at -16. You beat a team by 20 on the road on a 16, and you come back shorter at 10. They're telling you this matchup is going to tighten up. And if you really go to the other side of this game, Georgia Southern is absolutely a bye team this year. Just go through their calendar. Morgan State, FCS, took care of business, 59-7 blowout, went to Nebraska, which was really a big win for them regardless of how bad Nebraska is. When a Georgia Southern team that is historically not an excellent perennial bowl team beats Nebraska on the road, 45-42, that's a big, big high for them. Then we faded them correctly, 2-unit special with UAB in week 3. We knew that'd be a fall down spot for them coming off of that. Came home covered against Ball State last week. You go in here to Coastal Carolina. Again, fool's gold, way too hot, short line, revenge game. It's where you want to be at +10.5. Guns, picks, alignment, I believe.
Full alignment on this game, my friend. I mean, you look at Georgia South right now, Southern, they are 3-1 straight up, and their only loss was against a good UAB team. We know, as you know, if you've ever watched the show, we love UAB, and they will come up later in a few weeks, hopefully. But you also look at the offensive average of this team, 510 yards of total offense, 323 on the passing. I was like, this is a good team that's completely flipped their schemes around. Now you have this Coastal Carolina team that's 4-0 straight up, but look at what they played. I was like, they've really played a lackluster schedule so far, excluding their win last week versus Georgia State, 41-24. If you actually consider Georgia State an actual competitor. Now you have Coastal Carolina. Their vulnerabilities are in the run game. I was like, if you look at the Army game versus Army, they were very vulnerable there. And in the passing game, all 4 games, they average 275 yards per game given up. Now you have this Georgia Southern team that loves to pass the ball. We talked about the pass. Coastal Carolina gives up a lot on the pass. 323 yards passing per game, and they limit their opponents. This offensive line is very good. 0.1% sack rate. My God, that means they don't give up a damn sack. Now you have a double revenge. I keep just revenge. They lost, and Shark mentioned it before. Coastal Carolina beat them 28-8 as 16-point dogs in 2021, 28-14 as 5-point dogs in 2020. Now you got them at a spot at +9.5. Perfect spot for Georgia Southern, a high-profile G5 team, 4-0, playing at a level to the level of their competition in at least 3 of the 4 spots. This is an offense that Coastal Carolina hasn't faced yet. A Georgia Southern team that, by the way, I think they beat Nebraska. Take it for what it's worth. Still a P5 team. Give me Georgia Southern and the points. I got them at plus 9.5. Shark got a better line, but plus 9.5 is good for me as the play.
Throwing it back to the gun as he is laying out his full card here. And we appreciate you guys staying with us for 30 minutes. I know it's the middle of a Friday evening. You guys are out having libations, love, respect, and domination at all points in time. It is Sharky Waters Nation. 9 words of lifestyle. Ride the wave or get out of the water. Staying the course. We're going 4 p.m. We're going North Texas. The Mean Green +3. Guns picks, an official.
Listen, while I'm at it, I see 21 people in the YouTube. You better smash that like button. You better be subscribed to us. That's what we do. We give the sharpest content on the planet. But let's talk North Texas. Let's talk the Mean Green here. Coming off back-to-back road losses to UNLV and Memphis. Now, let's look at the scenario here. UNLV is absolutely red hot as far as a team. Not only just as a favorite, as a dog right now. They are a play-on team. You look at Memphis. Memphis is a bad road team, good home team. Guess where they had to play? North Texas had to play Memphis last week. They played them at home. But let's break down that Memphis game for a second. They lost 44-34. But looking into the stats, North Texas put up 474 yards of total offense versus Memphis, who only put up 334. So they had a plus 139 net yard average versus Memphis. So North Texas actually led in the first downs too, 23-19. The deciding factor in that game was turnovers. If North Texas doesn't turn over the ball, North Texas could probably win that game outright. -2 turnover ratio in that game. Now, when you look at FAU is a play-on home team, but they are play-off road team. If you look at the statistics on that, 2-10 straight up on the road. And I don't mean against the spread. I mean straight up. And you have North Texas sitting here as a dog at home. And you look at North Texas, great road team, different on the road. 21-10 straight up under Seth Luttrell. 21-10 straight up at home. Now you look at them in this situation as a matchup. And just like I said, the matchup matches what these teams do well. Home team is 7-2 straight up and against the spread in the last 9 meetings. This is just a classic bad road team versus a good home team. A North Texas team that is just hungry for a win, fighting and clawing after back-to-back road losses to very good teams in the G5 scenario. Give me North Texas +3 as the play.
Staying course yet again as the gun has opened up his card and is absolutely ready to dominate. 7 p.m. Troy on the road. We've already bought Troy correctly this year as an underdog at App State in what was one of the most just egregious backdoors of the entire year. A Hail Mary, a ball that was knocked down, knocked right into a receiver's hands who ran for a touchdown. Troy functions very well on the road as an underdog. Western Kentucky is coming off a 73-point win against the aforementioned bottom feeder at epic proportions, Florida International. Guns picks, Troy +5. Talk to me.
Listen, Shark just mentioned an epic deflating loss on the road to App State. But what they do, and they return and they play a good Marshall team that actually beat Notre Dame, and they go out and beat them outright 16-7, and dominated the net yardage battle, a whopping +247 net yards. Against a good run team too. They held Marshall team to 2 yards per carry in that game. Absolutely dominating, even though the score was low. Now look at Western Kentucky. They've dominated on the offensive end with 508 yards per game of total offense, 5.4 yards per carry on the ground. Granted, their competition is very soft. They've played FIU, Indiana, which is P5, Hawaii, come on, in Austin Peay. So 3 out of the 4 of that is the bottom of the barrel of college football. Now, Troy has a +57 net yard average for the season. And if you look at their competition, my God, Ole Miss, Alabama A&M, App State, and Marshall. Very different strength of schedule on that perspective, but they hold their opponents to 127 yards below their season average. Against that competition, This Troy team is undervalued here, in my opinion. Now, you have Western Kentucky in a potential look ahead, too. And when I say look ahead, go check out who they have to play next week. UTSA. Do you know what happened to them last year? They lost to UTSA in the Conference USA Championship 49-41 as a 3.5-point favorite in both contests, not just the Conference USA Championship, but they played each other. So it's a double revenge game. So we may be looking at WKU next week, but we will see what the line is going to be. You have a first-year head coach in Troy and John Summerall. He's done fairly well with this Troy team, actually getting them to compete with everybody on the G5 level. I think this is a great spot to take Troy. We love Troy altogether. Give me Troy +5 as the play.
Yeah, taking a breath. My last play, 2-unit special, 7:30 p.m. We're going Durham, North Carolina, and we're going Duke football. And this is a generational shift in Duke football. Again, the theme of this broadcast and this season and what we target teams that started last year horribly and are turning a corner now. Go back to Duke last year. They finished the season with, I believe, 7 consecutive losses. They were 0-8 in conference, and they were 3-9 overall. And speaking of their conference calendar, Duke last year on the road lost 48-0 at UVA. UVA is not the same team as they were last year. And I bring you back to a position that we took in week 2, where we had Illinois outside of the conference in a very similar revenge spot on a very similar line gap. Illinois had gotten hammered at UVA last year as well by, I believe, about 30 points. UVA in that game was laying double digits and came back as an underdog and got hammered 21-3. This is an identical environment. 48-0 last year, double-digit home favorite, come back on the road as an underdog. And this is not where they travel well. They're in a road back-to-back in conference off a cover at Syracuse last week in the Dome on a weekday Friday night, I believe. Tough travel, revenge game, Duke upward movement. Duke 3-1 ATS on the campaign. Did not cover last week at Kansas, which we had correctly. Now we buy the team we faded last week in a completely different environment, coming home in their conference opener. All boxes checked. 7:30 Eastern, an opportunity to dominate 2-unit special Duke Blue Devils football. Final play, staying in the ACC. Clemson comes home here off a ridiculous 51-45 win at Wake Forest. Primetime game in their stadium down there where they run down a hill, and I pray they don't tear their ACL because it's absolutely ridiculous. However, if they somehow run down that hill and they run downhill effectively, they catch a North Carolina State team that did beat them last year 27-21, a revenge game, an opportunity to dominate. Guns picks. What's going on?
I'm more worried about Dabo tearing his ACL than I am the players, because I think Dabo is getting a little bit long in the tooth to be running down that damn hill. But I digress. Look at this NC State team, 4-0 straight up, 2-2 against the spread. But they've played 3 home games, and 1 road win. Now let's look at NC State. They played, like I said, 3 straight home games. This is their first road game since week 1. What happened in week 1? They had to go play an ECU team, and they won 21-20. But what happened in that game? ECU missed a pivotal extra point that would have given them a tie, potentially going into overtime. And you actually look at the net yards battle, they were minus 39 net yards for the game. And I'm talking about NC State, not ECU. Clemson coming off a OT win against a good Wake Forest team, 51-45 on the road, and they absolutely dominated in net yards, plus 112 net yards. This is a good sign of this Clemson team getting hot. Now, Clemson did give up a ton of yards to Wake Forest, 447 yards of total offense, but look who was missing. They were missing key guys in the secondary for that game, who they're going to have for the NC State game. So don't take that with a grain of salt. And don't make that part of your cap, because it means nothing to me unless the secondary is fully healthy like they're going to be for this game. Everybody questioned Clemson's offense. especially early in the season. But look what they've done in their last 2 games. They put up 559 yards of total offense versus Wake Forest, and then the week before they went against La Tech, and they put up 529 yards of total offense. Revenge game, key point to my card. Look what happened to Clemson last year. They lost 27-21 on the road in double overtime as a 10-point favorite. But there were a lot of injuries that happened in that game. They lost 2 guys on that defensive line, 2 guys that you will be seeing in the NFL, including Brian Breezy. If you haven't seen that guy play, my God, watch this game, and it's a primetime game. We're talking 7:30 in the dark in Clemson. Very tough place to play, but Dabo loves these spots. He's been here before, and guess who hasn't been here before? NC State, the Wolfpack. So give me Clemson -6.5. 2-unit play, baby.
Love it, clearing my throat. 40 minutes in on a beautiful, beautiful free Friday evening. I do think in that game, you want to look at the under as well. I think when you see Clemson go up to 96 total points last week against a situational opponent type in Wake Forest who doesn't play any defense, and they come back here against NC State, who's already had a couple lackluster totals on the road. This is a really short number for a reason. Don't take the over here, guys. This is not space and value because it seems easy. This is going to be a low-scoring defensive battle here tomorrow night. That's it for the show. CFB Knowledge for College Week 5, wrapping it up. I have 6 top plays, 9 words of lifestyle. Ride the wave or get out of the water. Illinois at noon +7. James Madison back home in Harrisonburg off a really terrible effort in the first half last week, catching perpetual bottom feeder and awful road team Texas State at -22. 3:30 p.m., 1.5 unit special. Staying the course with a bye team, a bye program under Lance Leopold, Kansas +3. 6 p.m., we're going back to Old Dominion. They show up in the regional rivalry games. They don't show up for the other games. This is a regional rivalry game, revenge game, team showing northward movement with Hayden Wolf, second-year quarterback. Buy it at +3.5, 1 unit. 7 p.m., Georgia Southern +10.5, fading a way too fortunate and clean Coastal Carolina team coming in here off a mini bye and a blowout road win, which was a high against Georgia State in a revenge game dating back to last year. Final play, 7:30 p.m., Duke Blue Devils at home, -2.5. 2 units. The Gun, 12 plays on a suddenly not so casual Send It Saturday, October 1st, 2022. Actually, one's happening right now. Washington -2.5 on the road. Michael Penix Jr., 4-0 at home, going on the road for the Pac-12 opener at UCLA. Alignment, Illinois +7 at noon, 12 p.m. as well. SEC calendar opens for Ole Miss -7. 2 p.m. Utah -10.5, catching Oregon State off a high and a cover against USC going on the road where they do not perform nearly as well. Under 54.5 there also. 3:30 p.m., Oklahoma State catching Baylor coming home off a conference win as an underdog. Now Baylor's favored. I think the environment probably stays the same. Oklahoma State money line +2 and under 55.5. 4 p.m. North Texas +3. 7 p.m. Alignment, Georgia Southern. 7 p.m. Troy on the road, fading a very hot Western Kentucky team. And 7:30 p.m., as just detailed, Clemson -6.5 down there in Clemson, South Carolina, in what will be a showcase game. And as I mentioned, a Leatherhead style of throwback football. Not a lot of points, a lot of physicality, a lot of defense for Dabo and the boys. That's the show, The Shark and the Gun. Close them out with some hype words, some loving words, some respectful words. We appreciate you guys immensely for interacting with our show. We know on Friday night you're out doing your business, hanging the fuck out, living life, loving and dominating. We will be sharing every play tomorrow. One thing I want to make clear, if I don't say it's my official play, it's Guns' play. It's specified. We don't always have the same plays. And because the show exists as a show, we share all the plays. So do your homework. It's not hard to read. If it says official from Guns Picks, it's Guns play. Official from me, it's my play. Basic stuff, but sometimes not so basic, unfortunately. Guns Picks, close them out and let's dominate.
Like Shark said, my plays are my plays. His plays are his plays. We do align on some, but we will tell you which plays we're on. Pay attention, folks. But that's going to be the show. Check me out 10 a.m. live tomorrow morning, and I will be live and answering any questions that you have, any plays that you have. I will give you my personal opinion on the plays like I always do. 30 minutes of fire. You fire the plays. I give you my opinions. But also smash that like button and also subscribe to the Dad Bods YouTube channel. Support us, folks. Do us a favor. We've had 20 consistent viewers on during this show. You better be subscribing. You better be hitting like buttons because we want to grow this show. Till next time, we will see you on Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Circa Millions NFL preview show. Till then, peace.